make it clap. I got the strap, 21 gats, feel like I'm savage. 21 bitches and none of them average. I'm gon' fuck me tonight, me a bad bitch. I don't give a fuck about niggas, I don't give a fuck about hoes. I don't give a fuck about your bros, I don't give a fuck about your toes, your hoes, your manicure, pedicure toes. I'm coming on the block with the rocks, 20-inch Glocks in my socks. Niggas keep doing that crazy ass shit. If I go to jail, I'ma keep a lock in the sock.
Okay, whooping a Tesla. I just wanna leave her tonight. I wanna just make everything seem yours. Alright, y'all. Part 2 of Naruto with the Sex Hokage. We left off where? And this time, I actually didn't have to go rewatch because I remembered. We left off where Naruto had, he was sitting down at the Hokage office. As he just got done beating the shit out of, Kushina's cheeks. And, he told her to come by later in the office. As Naruto, he's sitting down as he hears a knock. As she says, come in. As the person walks in and he says, oh, hi, do I know you? As she says, yeah. He says, no, but I know you. As she says, that's creepy, but okay. As he says, what's your name? As she says, Karen Uzumaki. As Naruto says, Uzumaki. As she says, yeah, you're Naruto Uzumaki, right? As he says, yeah. As she sees he has no shirt on and blushes intensely. As Naruto says, oh, sorry, do you want me to put a shirt on? As she says, no, you're fine. As he says, no, never mind. As she says, he says, so why have you come to this village? As Karin responds, I heard a lot of good things about it, so I wanted to just come and see if I could live here. As he says, okay. I'm pretty sure Karin is older than Naruto. But yeah, he says Karin. He says, okay, cool. How old are you? As she says, pretty sure Naruto's like 20, 18. He might be 20 or 18. I forgot. But I'm just gonna make up 19 to be sure. Oh no. Cause I did the 3 times skip with Tsunade, didn't I? So he'd be 21. Yeah, 21. As she says, I'm 24. Karen says that. As she says, okay. As Naruto says, well, do you have a place to stay? Matter of fact, he says you can go to the Uzumaki compound. My mom will be there. As he says, who's your mom? He says, Kushina Uzumaki. And she says, Kushina? She's so cool. As he starts chuckling, he says, yeah, thanks. As she starts talking about the battles and the things Kushina accomplished that really no other Uzumaki could accomplish. About how she in her prime. In her prime, she could defeat like a lot of ninjas by herself. She was also got the red habanero, and he says she was also got the red habanero. They also talk about how she had the 9 tails and she could control it very well. As Naruto says, Naruto says some of that I didn't even know. He says, so is there any more Uzumaki besides us 3? And she says, no, none that I know of. As Naruto says, oh, okay. And he says, well, if my mom is not the Uzumaki compound, he says here. As she says, what is this? He says, a key. Just tell my mother you're an Uzumaki, or she should know from your distinct red hair. As Naruto, as Kushina, Karin says, oh, okay, thank you, Naruto. When she runs out, she gets out, no gay shit, no homo. She says Naruto is so cute. As he sees someone walking, as Naruto says, he says, today's boring. As Karin goes back to the Uzumaki compound. As she gets there, she sees, she says, hello? As she starts walking throughout the rooms of the Uzumaki compound. And she sees Kushina and one of them sleeping. As Kushina, he says, that's Kushina. And she's about to wake her up. Well, he wakes her up and Kushina looks at Karin. And basically, she put her in a chokehold. As he says, why are you in my house? As Kushina says, Uzumaki. As she drops her quickly and says, what? No, it's only me and Naruto left. Stop lying. As she looks at her red hair and says, wait, you aren't lying. She says, yeah. As Naruto says, not Naruto. As Karin, he says, you're the red habanero, right? As she chuckles and says, yeah. I'm not that anymore, though. I think I'll calm down ever since. She says, ever since what? She says, nothing. But I have a son now, so. His name is Naruto. As she says, yeah, I know. I met him when we were, She says, I met him when I went to the Hokage office. As she says, Naruto, a few minutes later, they know each other. They know about each other's past and what they've been up to. As Naruto says, he says, so, is Kushina ever gonna drop by? As he says, I don't think so. As he hears footsteps. As he says, oh, someone's coming. As he's doing the paperwork. As he summons Shadow Clones to do the paperwork for him. As he says, so, who is it? I can hear your footsteps. As Karin, comes to the door and he says, Karin. And she says, oh, Naruto, I didn't expect you to be here so late. I just wanted to, make sure that you're fine, okay? Like, that you were okay. And he says, you sure? As she's wearing the thing on the right. Cause, like, god damn, that's gorgeous. Longer Karin, bro, she gorgeous, bro. I'm like, go front. But yeah. She's wearing that in the right picture. Naruto says, but the pants, they're black, or the skirt is black, and the shirt is a polka dot with polka dots. No, the shirt has a Uzumaki thingy on it. And she says, oh, I see you found a Uzumaki shirt. And she says, yeah, it's pretty small. And she pulls it down to her, tries to pull it down a little bit. And she says, but I like it, so. And she says, okay. And she says, I brought you something. As as Naruto says, what is it? As she says, here, as he hands her, Karen hands her a bowl with some instant ramen in it, already cooked and hot. As she says, really? As she chuckles and says, yeah. As he hugs her and says, thank you so much. As he puts it on his desk, and he's about to take his first bite. As Karen says, I'm Naruto. And he says, actually, no. He says, must be good, huh? As she says, yeah. As he hears her stomach rumble. As he says, are you hungry? And she says, no, I'm fine. As she says, oh, come on. As he grabs her hand and puts her in his lap. As he says, you can take a couple bites. As she says, she's like basically having a panic attack, because like she's in Naruto's lap. So she says, Naruto? As she says, yes, what is it? She says, the position I'm sitting. As he says, you'll be fine. As she blushes, dark red. As Karen grabs a bite. As Naruto says, I got something in store for her. As he grabs her waist. As she says, what are you doing? As he says, well, since it's only me and you, we have to repopulate. As he says, it's only me, you, and my mom. Don't you want to just, try to revive the clan? As she says, what? What is that? As she turns as red as her hair. As Naruto says, whispers in her ear. He whispers in her ear, do you? She says, kinda. As he says, alright then. When you're 100% positive, come back to me and I'll take care of it. As he says, now you can go, but you can stay if you're sure of making that clan. As she blushes hard. She blushes like very hard. As Naruto says, Naruto says which option are you gonna go to? He says, which option are you gonna do? Stay here and revive the clan, or go home and you can just chill with my mom? As she gets up, says, sorry Naruto, not today. As he says, I'd hate to do this the hard way. As she walks to the door. As he body flickers in front of the door and says, he pins her on the wall, and he says, he pins her on the wall. As he says, I would have to hate this the hard way, Karen. As he starts kissing her neck and biting her ear. As Naruto still hasn't. He never has a shirt on. I'm just gonna get that clear to y'all right now. He never has a shirt on. He mostly his attire is black pants, really no belt, and maybe a small jacket. That's like sometimes. If it's cold outside, he'll wear a little small jacket, but he still has no shirt on, cause he cut like that. It's my boy. Naruto says, he says, I don't want to push you things too far, so hold on. Or she just give consent. As she says, fine, you can do it. As he says, you sure? As she says, yeah. Just as he says, well then no more talking. As he picks her legs up and he's holding them. But at the same time he's holding her butt. Like her legs are wrapped around him and he's holding her butt. As they start kissing and not Kushina. Karen takes off her shirt as Naruto. Now she's only in the bra. As Naruto says, he says, as he bites the bra off. As she tries to hide herself. As Naruto says, move those. He says, move your hands. As she says, what? As he says, if we're gonna repopulate the clan, I'm gonna have to see every piece of your body. As Naruto, yeah, as Naruto says, as Naruto says, now move your arms. As she moves her arm, move her hands and arms out of the way, and she's just kind of embarrassed, but she's like her crimson red. As Naruto says, you won't be blushing. He says you won't be blushing no more after this, especially after this. As he says, he sets her down. As he ooh, wow, Pablo Escobar. As he, wait, what the? As basically she takes off her skirt, or no, she leaves it on. Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for so bad. She leaves her skirt on. As Naruto says, he says, Kurt. As she says, what is it? As she says, you have a fat ass. As she blushes and looks away, still trying to hide herself. As Naruto reaches in her skirt. As he says, now let's take this off. As he puts her on the couch in the Hokage's office. As he starts biting the pieces off of her skirt. As she's right now she's nothing but with her panties and just her panties on. Because he bit off her bra. As Naruto says, as he starts rubbing her thighs and squeezing them. As he starts fingering her. As she starts she's like moaning and shit like that. As she's comes on Naruto or squirt on Naruto. I don't know the difference, but Corey over, yeah, Corey over, he told me some things about this. That's why I wanted to, that's my master. That's all I gotta say. Should go check him out though. Like, no cap, he really good. But yeah, without further ado, talk about other YouTubers. Let me go focus on this. What if he says Naruto? As she squirted on him, Naruto says that fast. As he slides her pussy out of the way. As he says you're a virgin, aren't you? As she looks away. As he says, well then. As he starts rubbing his cock right there where the pussy is, and he starts I'm a freaky motherfucker. I just noticed that. He starts playing with her clit as he says, as she says, he starts playing, yeah, and she says, not right there, sensitive, as Naruto chuckles, and basically she squirts on him again. As Naruto says, alright, now for the main event, as he sticks his tip inside, as she moans loudly, but at the same time with pain. As he sticks it all the way in, or he sticks it halfway in, and he sticks the rest in. Yeah. There we go. Matter of fact, let me move somewhere. People staring at me. Alright. He says, basically, Naruto says, Naruto says that, he says, I'm gonna stick the rest in. As she says, the rest isn't in. As she says, what? No. As he slowly sticks the rest in. As Naruto says, I'm gonna go slow since this is your first time. As she looks away. As he says, does it hurt? As she says, she nods her head, yeah. As he says, well, we're not gonna stop. We have to get this over with. This is just the beginning of he says this is just the beginning of bringing back the clan. As he says, after he says that, Naruto, he says, Nakushima. I mean, sorry, he says, nah, crying. As she says, yes. As he says, he flips her over, and now she's on top of him. He says, I want you to ride me. As she says, okay. As she slowly but surely, after the pain goes away, she starts. Oh my god. SRT. No. She went faster than SRT. But yeah. But Naruto. But she starts riding Naruto. As Naruto says, damn. He says, your pussy's so tight. He says, I should expect this from my version. As she looks away. And blushes. As Naruto says, he says, where'd you get these skills from? As she says, this is my first time. As he says, oh, you sure about that? As she says, yeah. As he says, you sure? Damn it. As she says, I haven't learned from anyone. This is my first time. As he says, okay. As he flips her over, and now he's on top of her. As she says, what? As he says, I was getting tired of you doing all the work. As she says, okay. As Naruto says now, as he lifts her up, and now they're standing up, but her back is towards Naruto, as he starts beating the dunes. As we hear his footsteps. As he says shit. As he looks to his right, and he sees his desk. As he says, crying, I want to continue this. He says someone's coming. As she says, who? As he says, I don't know, but someone. As Naruto, this Michael Jordan suck. But as Naruto says, okay. As she says, okay. As she says, okay, they get under the desk. After they get under, or after she gets under the desk, he's still on top of it. After she gets under their desk, Naruto says that he says, wow, she really can do a lot of things. As Naruto as Naruto says, Naruto says, he says, so what do you need? As he sees a little, he sees the team walking. As he says, Hokage, we need a mission. As he says, okay. As the Hokage, as Naruto, he says, as she says, he says everything is everything alright, Hokage. If you're not feeling well, we can come ask for him for another day. As Naruto says, no, as she says, Hokage, are you sure you're alright? You seem like you're grunting or something. As she says, no, everything's fine. He says, just go to the, he says, the cabinet on the right. There should be a couple low-level missions. As a little boy says, I don't want a low-level mission. As he says, or no, a little girl says, I don't want a low-level mission. As he says, well, guess what? He dunked on him. LeBron, like, come on, it's LeBron. She says, I don't want a low-level mission. As she says, what's your name, little girl? As she says, why should I tell someone like you that? As the Kakashi says, he says, Kakashi, could you please teach us some manners? As he says, hell no, LeBron is behind you, come on. As she says, basically she says that, he says, again, I'm not gonna ask you your name. As she says, I don't have to. As he says, that black hair. As he says, your dad's Sasuke Uchiha, isn't it? As she says, as she says, no, it's not. As he says, he says you're probably a corrupt Hokage, and just want people for and just want Uchiha for the Sharingan. As Naruto says, actually, as he grunts again, as Kakashi says, is everything okay, Hokage? As Naruto says, yeah, everything's fine. It's just as he grunts again, as he says, are you sure everything is fine? You seem like you're in pain. As Naruto says, no, everything is okay. As Naruto comes in, climbs him up. As he says, that little girl was very disrespectful. He says, little girl, you're very disrespectful. As she says, I don't care. And Naruto says, as he says, where is Sasuke? I haven't seen him around the village. As he says, he left. As he says, what do you mean he left? He says, my dad left the village. As he says, as he thinks about something. He thinks about something with Sakura. As he says, oh, really? Me and your dad were close friends. Why would he leave? As get down. As she says, it's because my mom. As he says, what do you mean because your mom? As she says, he didn't get along with my mom very well. He'd hit her, and they didn't talk much either. Well, he says, no. She says they didn't talk much, so they weren't really a good couple. As Naruto says, Naruto says, oh, I thought I seen a spark in them. And she says, what do you mean a spark? And she says, well, you see, me and your mother were dating, and I broke up with her. So, he says, so, after I broke up with her, he says, after I broke up with her, I told her she could get with Sasuke, the next best thing. As Naruto says, Sadara says, he says, so what's your name, little girl? She says, Sadara Uchiha. As he says, he says, okay. As he says, if you want, I can come over later. He says, I can come over later. And she says, okay, could you teach me a couple jutsus? As he says, yeah, sure. And I'll tell you a little bit about the Sharingan too. As she smiles and says, okay. As she says, he's a better dad than Sasuke. Or, even though he's not my dad, I feel so close to him. As Naruto, bro, that was a dunk, bro. As Naruto says, alright, I'll probably come over maybe at 6 or 8 or when I'm done with my training. As she says, okay. As she says, okay, Naruto says, as he, whew, my neck. As Naruto, he says, what's you guys' name? It'd be disrespectful to know one person's name and not know the others. As he says, as they all introduce themselves, he says, one little kid says, my name, I don't think you have the right to earn that. He says, you haven't earned that, Hokage. He says, very determined. I like that. He says, Kakashi Hatsuke, the copy ninja. He says, hold on. He says, Kakashi Hatsuke of the Sharingan and copy ninja. As he says, I want you to train Sadara since you both have the Sharingan. As he says, okay. As Naruto says, Cardi. As they all leave and receive their mission, he says, I want that mission by next week. As I'll say, okay. As Naruto goes and he says, basically Naruto goes and he says, so, sorry. He says, as they leave, he says, Karen, get up. As she says, yes, what is it? As he says, he bends her over on the table. As he says, you have to get punished for that. I was talking to a little kid. He says, and you were sucking so hard. As she says, but he says, I know. As she licks her lips. As Naruto says, as she says, I know, I was looking hard. Or sucking hard, sorry. As he says, naughty little girl. as she says, "What are you gonna do? Punish me?" As Naruto laughs and says, "I'm gonna do more than that." And times get to where Karin gets home, or not, fuck that, she can't walk. Oh, my boy, Naruto the shoulder coach. That's what it is. But yeah, Naruto says, huh, as he busts another load in, as he busts another load in, Karin. As she says, as Karin says, Karin says, she says, as her tongue, she opens her mouth with her tongue out, and saliva coming from it. As he laid on, as Naruto says, he says that's gonna be it for today. As her eyes are rolled up, she's still on her desk. Her eyes are rolled up. Nigga, what? Not no foul. Her eyes are rolled up and her tongue is out, with cum just dripping from every hole. Every hole. As that was her punishment for and bunch of in front of kids, just not just going ham on that, just going ham. As Naruto says, he says you can suck me off really good. As he says, matter of fact, as he says matter of fact, as he goes and he says, we'll finish this some other. He says maybe. He says I'll fuck you, maybe tomorrow. As he says no. He says I'll fuck you when I feel like it, or when you recover. As he chuckles. And he says now. Get out of my office. As she says, I can't walk. As Naruto says, he says, I figured. He says, I figured that. As Naruto, as Naruto says, as he says, I figured that. As Naruto goes, picks her, first, he says, before we leave, as she's still on the table, bent over, as he picks her up and actually puts her on the table, as he puts his cock in her mouth, as he says, give me one last blowjob, as she says, okay, and she sucks him off. As she sucks him off, Naruto says, oh man, she has the best head ever, other than mother. As yeah, he says other than mother. As he nuts in her mouth. As Naruto. As Naruto says, he says, alright, as he puts her on the couch. And she's still, she still actually thinks his cock is still inside of her. Because he fucked her so many times. And that it comes inside of her so many times. That was not a foul. That wasn't a foul. The fuck. Man, that's business. But yeah, Naruto says, he says, Naruto says, as he gets home, and he says, "Hi, mother." As she says, "Oh, hi, Naruto." As he puts Kushina down. As she says, "Is everything okay with her?" Or he says, "What's wrong with her?" As Naruto says, Naruto says, "Oh, her boyfriend just kind of." As she says, "Oh, who's her boyfriend?" As she says, "I don't know, some random guy." As he says, "Oh, okay." As Naruto says, Naruto says, he says, "Well, yeah, he messed her up pretty rough. I just brought her home because because he says he's just using her for his body. He's just using her for her body." And he says, "Oh, that's horrible." As he says, "I know, but I don't want her to find out the sad truth." As she says, "You want me to tell her in the morning?" As Naruto says, "No, I'll handle it." As Naruto's lays her down on the couch, and he says, "All right, but I'm gonna go take a shower." As he goes to go take a, she goes in the shower. He says, he says, he thinks to himself as he says, "It wouldn't hurt to fuck two people in one day, would it?" As he says, "Nah." As he goes into his mother's room. I did not get anybody. Alright, yeah. He goes into his mother's room, and he says, as he opens the door, as she says, "Naruto, is that you?" As Naruto, she doesn't hear a response. She thinks nothing of it. So Naruto says, yeah. Naruto says that, he says that, he says, "I'm just getting a towel, Mom. I'm getting in after you." As she says, "Oh, okay." As Naruto goes, gets in it, and no, sorry. He goes, and as he goes, he says, I might even take it. He says, "I'm not just gonna get a towel. I'm gonna fuck the shit out of you." As she says, "Naruto, did you say something?" As he says, "Oh no." As he opens the door, as she says, the towel's on the top, in the corner to the right. As she says, "I know, Mom, I'm not a baby." As she chuckles and says, "Yeah." As Naruto, he says, "This one?" She says, "Yeah, over there." As she's peeking her head through the curtain. As Naruto goes, he closes the door, and she says, "Oh, he left." As Naruto secretly gets in the shower. As he bends Kushina over it, as she says, "Naruto," and she says, "Who's that?" As Naruto says, whispers in her ear, "I think you know who it is." As ooh, as he plunges his cock he plunges his cock inside of her. As she says, ooh, as she says, as she says, she's like moans like loudly. Hell no, not over Brian. As she moans loudly, Naruto says, he says, "You have to quiet down. It's not just us in the house anymore." As she says, "Well, you," as he says, "I know what I did." As he starts going harder and faster. As we go back to Karin, who wakes up to hear moans, and these moans, she says She thinks nothing of it, as she thinks it's Karin and some other guy. As she says, Naruto, he thought of something before he got in that shower. He not dumb. He thought of what if Karin wants to wake up. So he suck. So Naruto, he sees a note, and he put a note there saying, I went out with some friends. As he says, I'll be back later today, or later on tonight. As she says, okay, she goes back to sleep. As we get to Naruto, as Naruto says, he says, oh wow. As he says, you're really squeezing me tight down there. As she says, yeah, I haven't been fucking in a long time. As he says, shut it. As he starts going harder. And basically he's touching her womb. As he says my dick is, he says her pussy's too small. As she says, he says her pussy's too small. As Naruto, I have to say Meliodas. As Naruto goes and he says, okay, he's not that cold. Naruto goes and he says, he smoked the layup. Naruto says, wait, what does Naruto say? After he's done fucking Kushina, he's left her in the shower just to get fucked. He says no, he just left her in the shower. As he says, ooh, that really calmed me down. As he says, he thinks about Kushina again. And he thinks about her fast. Thinks about the fatty. As he gets hard again. As he starts jerking off to a picture. He just started jerking off. To Shinobi help. Yes, sir. No. But yeah, he don't need no Shinobi help on the pussy. He can. But yeah, Naruto says, I don't know, get out of here. Put it down. Naruto says, he says, damn it, I can't stop. As he thinks of Karin sleeping on the couch. As he walks in, but the shower's still running for Kushina. Cause she's got her ass and her back blew up. As he says, he thinks about fucking Karin until he says, I don't know if I can do that. As he goes into the to the living room to find out where that's where she's at, the living room. And he says shit. As he looks at Karin, and she looks at it, and she wakes up, and she says, Naruto, you're back. And he says, yeah, I am. And she says, he says, you wanna watch a movie? And she says, sure. As he gets down and cuddles, and he puts his head on Kari's stomach. As she's rubbing her hands around his head. As Naruto, as Naruto says, he basically says that, he says, as she looks at Karin, and he says, I'm not gonna do that, that's, no. As she says, everything's alright, Naruto. As Naruto says, everything's alright, Karin. As he says, as she says, Naruto, as he says, yes, what is it? As she says, if we ever do populate the clan, he says, and it's gonna sound weird, but our kid's gonna, as he says, Naruto chuckles and says, I don't know if there's any, he says, if there's any young other young Uzumaki that we don't know about born at the same time around that our Uzumakis are born, then maybe not. So it's kind of a 75 20% chance, 25% chance that happens. As he says, 75% that, 75 that they actually have to, fuck each other. As Naruto says, as Karin says, okay. And as she says, okay, Brian just smoked the layup. Naruto says, as he says, if they do have to, let's just make them have a very, very good bond. So they'll, they'll love each other or something. As he says, okay. As Naruto, oh, get the ball. As Naruto goes and he says, he goes and he says, as she looks at Karin, sleeping. As Naruto says, this is a comfortable spot. As he goes to sleep. A couple minutes later, he wakes up and says, Hokage work. He says, I have to go do Hokage work. As Karin says, Naruto. As he says, what is it? As he looks where he's laying. As his mouth, like literally on her pussy. Yeah. Thanks for the foul. Yeah, that's good. As she says, he says, oh, sorry. As he moves, as he says, oh, wow. I can't believe I got into that position while I was sleeping. As he chuckles. And as he chuckles, it's not out of bounds, but okay. He chuckles and he says, all right, Mom, see you later. I have to go do some Hokage work. As she goes and she gives him a quick blowjob, real quick. As he goes in her room. As Naruto goes and he says, oh shit, I totally forgot about Sadara. And he says, I totally forgot about Sadara. As Naruto goes and he says, he says he orders Sadara to come to his office. Just Sadara. As he says, sorry, Sadara, as she enters. And he says, what for? As he says, for not coming. I promise you how to come. How about I make it up to you? As she says, what do you mean make it up? As she says, what's something that you always wanted? As she says, something that I've always wanted. Well, as he says, there's this dress. As he says, all right, we'll get it for you. He says, I'll get it for you. As she says, really? As he says, yeah. And I'll spend the day with you, training and talking about things that you want to talk about. As he says, we might even go get some coffee or something. As she says, but you don't like coffee, do you? As he says, no. As he looks at her and he says, but you do, don't you? As she says, yeah. As Naruto chuckles and says, alright, we'll start. Hell no. He just dunked on LeBron, bro. He just dunked. Hold on. I'm so sorry. Tobias Harris dunked on dunk. Alright. But yeah, but Naruto says, no. He says, so we'll start, he says we'll start maybe, maybe in a few, he says maybe in an hour, because as he's having some shower clones, he says, these guys get my paperwork done for me. He says, matter of fact, let's go now. As he puts a do not disturb on the hokage thing. And as he puts this do not disturb on the hokage thing, he walks out and he says, all right, Sada, let's get some coffee first. As he sighs and he says, this is gonna be so disgusting. As she says, no, coffee's not that bad. He says, coffee's not that bad. As he says, you're right, it's horrible. He says, I'd rather go for sake instead. As she says, what's sake? As he says, you don't want to know. As he says, it's probably an adult drink. My mom drinks it all the time. As he says, then why'd you ask? She says, to see if you told me the truth. As Naruto sighs. As he says, he sighs. Ouch. As Naruto says that, Naruto says, he says, Naruto says, after he gets him the coffee, he says, alright, what do you want to talk about? As she says, me, I want to talk about, she says, my dad. As she says, your dad. As she says, yeah. I want to talk about my dad. He says, alright, what do you want to talk about? He says, and she says, you two are great friends, right? As Naruto says, yeah, or kinda. As she says, what do you mean kinda? He says, well, me and your dad kind of had a strong rivalry, and we didn't like each other much for that. As she says, oh, as Naruto, as Naruto says, yeah, but he says, but he says we did have a strong relationship, and we were pretty. He says, and we protected each other too. She says that was nice of you. She says, yeah. She says, hold on. Alright. She says, she says, can we go do this now? As Naruto says, alright, sure. As they go, and they have some fun. And Naruto goes to go buy the dress that she wanted. As Naruto says, he says, is that everything that you want, Sakura? As she says, yeah, thank you, Mr. Naruto. Oh, he says, thanks, Hokage. As he says, just call me Naruto. As Naruto goes and he says, he says, alright, Sada, I'll walk you home. As he starts to walk Sada home. And as he walks Sada home, as he starts walking Sada home, basically Naruto says, as he's walking Sada home, Naruto says, he says, alright, Sada, we're here. As he says, today was a fun day. I really enjoyed it, thanks. He says, you made me relieve from stress. And she says, no problem, Hokage. Or Naruto. As Sakura opens the door from a knock. As she says, oh, Sakura. As she picks her up and hugs her. And he says, where have you been? As she sees the Hokage. And she tries to clean up. As she tries to, she says, would you like to come in? I'll be very disrespectful. As Naruto says, no. As Sakura says, yeah, he would. As he says, sure. As Naruto goes and he says, he goes and he says, hold on. Oh, I feel like I was going to sneeze, but I didn't. Sorry. Naruto says that, he says, she's, wait, no. Naruto, as he walks in with, what's your name? Sorry. I'm so sorry for this, y'all. Let me focus. Naruto. Alright, I'm focused now. Naruto, as he walks in with us inside his crib, he looks at I forgot her name. Sakura. As he sees that she has a fat ass, fat titties. As he says, damn it. As he instantly gets a boner. As he says, hey, Sakura. He says, hey, Sakura, could you come to my office later tomorrow? As he says, yeah. As he says, why? As he says, I just want to reward you for being a good mom, a good solo mom. As he smiles and says, you too, Sarah. He says, Sarah, I'll come. He says, you wanna do that again? As she sighs, she doesn't sigh. She smiles and says, yeah, it was pretty fun. As Naruto goes and he says, okay. As Sakura's time skip to the next day, Naruto wakes up in Sakura's house as he's unfamiliar around where he is. As he says, that's right, I, spend the night up at Sakura's house. As he says, okay. As he wakes Sakura up and says, I'm leaving. As she says, okay. As Naruto says, as they leave, they both leave. And Naruto says, sorry. Naruto says, no, I'm not gonna keep playing with y'all. Naruto says, he says, you know what, as, wait, I got Galaxy, 3 Galaxy, alright. Naruto says, alright, I'm focused now. Naruto says, remember, Sakura, come by my office. I want to treat you with, maybe a meal or something and buy you a couple clothes for working solo. As he gives her a couple $1,000 and says, he says, come to my office to receive the other part of the reward. As Naruto sits down in the Hokage office. He did go home, kiss his mom and tell her he loves her. As he goes to the Hokage office, sits down. As it's like 12 o'clock noon. Naruto says, he says, damn it, Sakura's fat ass and her fat titties. She's matured really fast. I don't know how. As he sees someone walk, he hears a knock on the door. As he says, come in. As he's laying down, his head is down. As he says, you told me to come here, Naruto. As he looks up, he sees Sakura. As he says, alright. As he says, he thinks of something. As he says, I remember. He says, I made an aphrodisiac. As Naruto looks at a pot of tea, and he looks at the aphrodisiac. As he says, would you like some tea? As she says, sure. It'd be rude not to refuse anything from the Hokage. As she puts the aphrodisiac, all of it, inside his cup with some tea. And he says, would you like it sugared? Wait a damn minute. Do you sugar tea? I know you can have iced tea and hot tea, but do you sugar it? Oh, I'm thinking about this hard. I'm pretty sure you don't. Yeah, you don't. Definitely not. He says, so. He says, here, as she drinks the tea, and she thought she instantly gets horny. As, actually, no, hell no, I gotta kick in a little bit, He says, matter of fact, I got some planned for Sakura right now. He pins her down as he takes off he rips off her shorts. As she says, no, stop this. As Naruto says, as the aphrodisiac kicks in, as she blinks a couple times. As she says, Naruto, what are you doing? As he says, there we go. As he slides his step in. As he plunges the rest in. as she starts screaming and moaning. Time skip by like an hour later, and Sakura is his officially number one come down still. As she said, fuck both of my hoes, please. As she getting her mouth gargled by his cock and her ass and her pussy fucked by some shadow clones. As Naruto says, damn it. As he goes soft. As Sakura says, please give me somewhere if your heart's leaving me come. As Naruto looks at her and he says, damn it. He says, damn it, Sakura. As he cleans up the mess and he says, fuck. As she breathes in and out and says, I still have to go take care of Tsunade. As he says, stay here. As he goes to Sakura's crib. Well, I guess Uchiha compound. Yeah, he goes to Uchiha compound. She doesn't really deserve to wear that emblem, but okay. She says, Sakura, as she says, I won't be able to do this, take you out today, maybe tomorrow. And your mother, she's sleeping at my office. We kind of had he says, I kind of rewarded her too well. As she says, what did you give her? As he says, we just had a couple drinks and talked about life. And she got sleepy, so she fell asleep on my couch. As she says, okay. As he says, nice excuse, Naruto, nice excuse. As Sakura says, alright, Naruto, see you later. As she hugs him, and Naruto hugs back. Naruto, he says, where could Tsunade possibly be? Because she's out probably drinking sake. As he sees, he goes to a bar to see men hitting on Tsunade. As he says, shit. As she says, she's drunk, she can't even control herself. As Naruto says, he says, hey, back the fuck off. As the men look at him, as he says, the hokage. As they all run away. As Naruto says, he says, Tsunade. As she says, yes. She says, yes, master. Why haven't you come to fuck me? As Naruto says, I've been busy. Come on. Let's go to the hot springs. As she says, ooh, what are you going to do to me there? As Naruto says, I just want to relax and cool off. As she says, okay. And that's where I'm going to be ending this episode off.